Good morning, everyone. Hi, I am Stacy. This is Loving My Veteran, and we are walking in my shoes this morning. Today is the second day of a three-part series. Should I stay or should I go? It is a question we ask ourselves a lot as the spouses of veterans that suffer from PTSD. We do it a lot. And so I wanted to talk about that because I think it is important that we help find that answer. Should I stay or should I go? Let me get the chat on because I'm not real good at that always. Let's see if I can do that. Oh, yay, it's there. So it is important that we work through this. Good morning, Sarah. It is super important that we work through this because we all question it. And if you are the spouse of a veteran, if you're really the spouse of anybody, I think at some point in time, or the partner of anybody, you say, what am I doing here? Why am I in this? Do I stay? Do I go? I think it's one of those things that we just all go through. We tend to think about this a lot. Am I going to stay or am I leaving? And so we need to find that answer. We need to, good morning, Erica. We need to find that answer. We need to find that help that will get us through in what creates, morning, Melissa. There is a way to get us through that. And we fight and we struggle. And, I've said before that there are many times that I have found myself in the bedroom crying, saying, am I destined to live like this forever? We all go through that. So if you think you don't, and if you haven't, then God love you because you're one of the few. But the truth is we probably all do that. So let me grab some coffee. Everybody grab your coffee, get your coffee going here. My health coach has not said I can't have coffee yet, so I'm kind of excited. And since she's watching, I'm good. So it's just one of those things that we go through. One more good sip and we'll get started. We find ourselves asking that question a lot. Do I stay? Do I go? Where is the reality behind that? And when you go out and you talk to other people, especially people who are not going through what we go through, people who do not live in this veteran world with the PTSD, they don't get it. They don't understand it. We weren't given a manual. We have no way to navigate this from day one. Nobody tells you what's going to happen. And so you find yourself locked in that room crying. And what have I gotten myself into? So let me tell you, there is hope. There's a lot of people who are doing this successfully. And that's what we're here about today. We're about getting that. I want you to be able to say, I need to stay. We've got this. So as we go through this, it is important to understand, one, where we are and that everything is not always PTSD. We use it a lot as an excuse because we don't know how to navigate through that. We have to learn to navigate through the PTSD so we can get to the core of the problem, which is the relationship itself. Okay. We have to learn to navigate through the PTSD moments so we can get to the core of the problem, which is the relationship itself. And that is usually communication. I will say this over and over again. Communication is key to being able to do this and do this well. So that's what we have to figure out first. So let's back up and take the whole PTSD, TBI, military training. You need to understand this going forward. And people who won't get it. That's why we call this walking in my shoes, because they haven't walked in your shoes. They don't understand it. Let's back that up just a little bit. Remember, so here's this nice guy or girl, and they decide they're going to get in the military. Here we go. They go to MEPS, they sign their paperwork. Everything is good. We all got flags, and parents all have flags in their yard, and they wear the proud sign that says military mom. We have all that. That all goes on. Military wife. I mean, I can remember when I was married to my ex-husband and he was active duty, I had the Navy wife shirt and all that stuff going on. So we do that. And we're proud of them on day one. What we don't understand, they're going through their basic training, and, it's weeks sometimes before we talk to them. And what we don't understand is the day they sign that paperwork, the day they sign that and they leave and they go off to training, we don't understand that from that moment forward, they're being reprogrammed to become, in Boone Cutler's words, a warfighter. That's what they're being programmed for. Okay, so you have to get that. You have to get that mentality. They are not leaving, right? They are not leaving as this young man or woman and coming back that way. They are leaving to become a warfighter, in Boone's words. That's what he calls them. And I love that terminology. So that's what they're doing. So they get off that little bus that takes them there. And I've heard guys say they cross the yellow line, they stand on the yellow footprints, whatever that may be. And they start their good morning, Nakia. Their journey starts at that moment. At that moment, their journey starts. And the person that went is totally reprogrammed. They are reprogrammed to think a certain way, protect home. And home is usually the country is where it starts, but their mindset is so much protect home. So they're always in protection mode. You have to remember that protection mode is what they're trained to do from this moment on. You don't untrain that. When you first started driving a car, you had to concentrate on where you put your hands on the steering wheel. I can't even do it right now because back in the old days, we put them at 10 and 2, right? And that's where they were. But now with airbags, they say don't do that. But you put your hands in a certain place. You learn how to scan your mirrors. You learn to make sure that you talk yourself through the process. Is my foot on the brake? Am I putting it in reverse? Or am I putting it in park? You talked yourself through that process, right? You talked yourself through how to keep it in your lane, how to line it up. I can remember my Nana, I was way younger than I should have been driving. My Nana would take us driving and she would say, now you take the little hood ornament right here, which they don't make much anymore, but the hood ornament, and you line it up. And that's how I learned to drive. And before long, it became second nature. So driving was something that was taught to me and it became second nature. So protecting is something that was taught to them and it has become second nature. So even if you don't drive for a week or 2 weeks, or you have surgery and you can't drive for 6 weeks or whatever it is, when you get back in the car, you still know how to drive, right? I mean, you didn't undo that. You still know how to do that. So that's what happens to them. They go, they get trained, they get conditioned to be a certain way, right? So they're a certain way and they don't undo that. It never gets undone. And that is important that you understand that that mentality will never go away. Now, when they come home and they're on leave and yeah, life is good and they're not deployed anymore and they come home and they're themselves, right? We expect them to be themselves. I can remember when my ex-husband left and Woody left and he went to 6-month deployment. When he came home, I wanted him to be himself. That's what I wanted. Okay. And when he came home, he acted like himself a lot, but there were times he didn't based on what he saw. Same thing happens in this world, but they don't want to bring that garbage to their family because their job again is to protect home. So they don't bring all that stuff and drop it in your lap because their job is to protect home. So now fast forward, a lot of us married our veterans, our current veterans after deployment. So they kind of, PTSD isn't a 24-hour, 7-day a week, 365-day a year explosion. So let's remember that. It is a triggered moment, and some are triggered more often, and it becomes a mindset. But you fell in love with them, and that's who you love, right? That person, not the PTSD, the person. So when we're talking about staying or going, you got to remember it is about the person. Same thing with the TBI. They have those moments that are good and they have those moments that are not, but you fell in love with that person. So now things are starting to come up and flare up and they're dropping in your lap and you're getting trigger moments and you're getting PTSD moments, and you're getting the fact that they want to isolate more because something's happened. A lot of people say, well, we used to go to the beach, or we used to go to the park, or we used to go to wherever, and we used to do this together as a family, and we used to do this, and now all of a sudden we're not. But as events change in the world, their perspective changes, the impending threat comes in. Their job is still to protect home. That's what they were trained for. So the mindset flips. And then we don't understand why that mindset flips. Well, because they're going back to what is instinctive for them. Instinctive for them is to protect home. That's instinctive. You can't uninstinctive that. Just like when you learn to drive, you can't unlearn to drive. Now, people are horrible drivers. I don't know where they all learn to drive, but you can't undo that thing. Richard hasn't driven in a long time, but if he was physically able, he'd still get in the car and he'd instinctively know to put his foot on the brake and put the car in reverse. He would know that because it's instinct to him. So we have to remember that. We have to remember that instinctiveness. So when it comes to communicating with them, they still love us. They didn't stop that. They still love us, but they want to protect us. So think about when they deployed. And I'm not saying you had to be married to them at deployment, but think about when they deployed. When they deployed, they knew that their loved ones were home and were safe. Okay, again, they knew their loved ones were home and were safe. They knew they had to separate from you to be safe, or their family. And if you are the spouse that's coming after the fact, they still see you as that family they have to separate from. So now we see where the pushing away comes from. A lot of the pushing away comes from, I need to protect you. So I need you to separate from me so I can keep you safe. Now, I know that sounds strange, but it is protection mode. It is what they do to protect you. So when they're pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing, and you get frustrated and you're like, why the hell am I here when they don't want me here to begin with? When the reality is they love you and they are pushing you away because in their mind that they are programmed, and they may not be aware that this is what they're doing because it's instinctive now. Remember, we train them to become instinctive. We don't train them to say, there's a threat. Let me see. Do I go get my gun? Do I do this? No, we are trained them. We're in danger. We do this instinctively. Do what we have to do to protect ourselves and protect our teammates and protect our country and protect home. That's what they do instinctively. So when they push you away sometimes, it is instinctive because they want to protect you. We don't get that. We don't understand that because for most people, the civilian world, especially women, mama bears, right? Protecting, it is our job to protect our kids, our family. And so what do? We go in and we grab and we hold what we're protecting. Nikia said, it was so annoying to me in the beginning. It took a long time to realize what it was. I took it as wanting simple and total control over me. And it's not that. Okay? It's not that at all. Because our brain thinks, again, let's go back to our brain. Our brain thinks when we protect something, we grab it and bring it into us. Their brain thinks when they protect something, they push it away. Because if you're with them, they're in danger, so you need to go away. That's the difference in how our brains work. That's the difference in the mindset, because we were trained, conditioned. That's instinctive. That comes back from animals. The worst animal in the world, we're watching Life Below Zero, right? yes, it makes a lot of sense all of a sudden when you think about it. When we get into, we're watching Life Below Zero right now. And so we were watching an episode the other day, and they were talking about how dangerous it was to go hunting. They hunt bears and whatever all the time, but it is super dangerous to go hunting if you see cubs, because the mama bear protects her cubs fiercely. And so when she does that, she attacks anything that comes towards them. Well, we do that. We bring our babies in. What do? They push us away to get us to safety so they can protect us, because that's the way it works. So when you're thinking about this before you get in to do I stay or do I go, because they pushed and pushed and pushed, now all of a sudden it makes a little bit of sense. So this is where communication starts to come in. You have to understand their mindset. You have to understand how this works and why this works. We are seeing more and more PTSD appearing now, way later after deployment in the last year and a half than they have seen at any other time. The numbers are spiking in our combat military, and not necessarily combat military, in our military in general. That number is spiking because they see unrest here at home. They went overseas and fought to protect home, being the country, and we lived in the country, so now we were protected, right? We're all on the same page now. But now they see the threat here, so they want to protect us more. So sometimes they push us away because they want to protect. They don't necessarily want us to leave the house, right? They don't want us to leave the house necessarily, but they push you away emotionally so they can stay focused on protecting home. I know for us, it's like, if I go anywhere without Carl, anywhere, he wants to know where I am, and by God, he's going to answer that phone if I call. He does, and I better answer it if he calls, because it's protection mode. It's not control mode, it's protection mode. And we need to understand that, because it will help you get better in your stuff. So now how do we handle that? It's simple. If I go somewhere by myself and I'm going to town and I'm like, hey, babe, I'm going to run up to town, which up to town for me is like 35 miles. So it's not like right here. Okay. So if I have to go to Waycross to town, I tell him I'm going to town. Do you want to go? I always give him that option. I don't get mad if he doesn't anymore. I used to. I don't, because it overloads him. And I know that, and that creates a trigger. And why am I going to deal with that trigger if I don't have to? So I ask him, do you want to go? A lot of times he'll say yes, sometimes he won't. So it just depends. But when I get in town, I usually send him a text. Hey, I'm in town. I'm at Walmart. Okay. Or I'll call him when I leave Walmart, and I'll tell him I'm on my way home. So the other day, and so I get where you're saying there is a difference in control and protection, but you have to get in their mindset. You have to get in their mindset. We are not living with normal relationship people who weren't trained and programmed. There's a big difference. There is a big difference. So now I will text him. Like, I called him the other day and I said, hey, I'm on my way home. And I immediately called him back about something else. I had done something when I'd stopped. I had done something I needed him to do at home. And so I called him right back and I said, hey, I just did this. Can you handle this? And he freaked out. And when he answered the phone, he wasn't like, hey, beautiful, like he always answers the phone. He was like, are you okay? And I didn't realize that by calling him back right after I talked to him, put him in that protection mode. Wasn't that he was controlling me, he was protecting me. So when you understand that this is how they operate, we can get rid a lot of the control by feeding in and helping them feel more secure in us. Okay. So if we go out and say, Hey, when I go somewhere, I'm going to tell you. When I do this, I'm going to talk to you. When I do this, I'm going to do that. Even y'all, for us, it's little things like if I move something in the house, if it is something that is important and I move it in the house, whether it be if I decide I'm going to vacuum the floor or whatever, and we have the rifle sitting by the door, wherever it may be, and I move it and I forget to put it back or I move it, I will tell him usually, hey, I'm going to do this. I move the gun to here, or I'm going to do this. I move this there, or I didn't park the car in the garage because of, right? Because I do that because it is protection mode for them. And I found that when I started doing that, we didn't have half the issues. That changed so much, and so much of that control went away. And Nakia says that Richard, being homebound, really has no idea what's happening in this world today, where he has overcome so much this behavior myself. I've taken up the protection mode, and it's tough, Nikki. I mean, you can vouch that because you flipped roles. It is tough being the protector. It is super tough being the protector where you think you have to defend. It is tough. And so you want to know these things. You want to understand. I mean, it's just one of those things we do. I know that when I worked EMS, right? I know that when I worked EMS and there was a wreck, and it was somewhere where my kids may have been en route from point A to point B, and I could hear it come over the radio, I would instinctively call my children to make sure they were okay. And they're like, Mom, we're fine. I mean, they kind of blew up and were short sometimes, but that was me making sure my kids were protected. And they were like, I'm irritating them because I called them. But that I was never going to change. What is it? I'm sorry. We're now having to address it with me as I did back then. And Sarah says, you also have to understand that we give extra care because they have PTSD. I'm only saying that because there are women actually being controlled. There are women being controlled, Sarah. I get that. But when we're talking about this concept, and it's not just PTSD. It is not just PTSD. It is that military mindset. It is that military mindset. You can almost take PTSD out of this equation. It is the military mindset of protection. So when I tell you we're seeing these numbers go up, we're seeing the PTSD numbers go up, we're seeing the disassociation go up, we're seeing the distancing going up, we're seeing this overprotectiveness going up. Those numbers are going up from people that didn't have PTSD, that may have been out of the service 10, 20 years, that we're now seeing. But it is what's going on in the world today that is creating that. I know I had a talk with a wife the other day, and she was talking about her husband is so controlling. And like, they used to let their kids go play at the neighbor's house. And now that COVID's over and things have freed up, they're letting them go back to do that. And she's like, oh yeah, they just go, and he'll come in. And when he watches the kids, right? When he watches the kids and she's gone off and the kids are there and they're like young teenagers and they just go to their friend's house, he is freaked out because he wants to know where they are. Not because he is controlling, because if something goes wrong, he wants to know where those kids are so he can get to them and protect them. So when we start using that mindset, we talk about control and we get in this, should I stay or should I go? Well, they push you away. And now we understand that, sometimes that pushing away isn't because they hate you. It is they push you away. Do they say sometimes they hate you? Do they say sometimes hateful things? Do they say sometimes I want a divorce? Do they say this? Yes. But the bottom line is they will do whatever it takes to make you move away so they can feel like they're protecting you. I know that I've had to sit down with Carl and say, look, I'm not going anywhere. How do we make this work together? And it's taken a long time to get to that point. It isn't like I just walk in on day one of trying to understand the whole PTSD thing and not knowing how to communicate at all, and then just go in and plop my ass down and say, I'm not going anywhere. Yeah, that wouldn't have gone over real well. So it took communication. It took having conversations. And we have to talk about that even further. How do you start communicating? Judging them is not working. We already see that this is not the best thing. Right? And you do. We feel like we're in protective mode because I fall into protective mode to reduce triggers while we're out places. I do too. I know that when we go to Walmart, I can look at him and I can tell when he's getting overwhelmed. And that kind of protection is great. And so sometimes, guess what, y'all? We leave Walmart without everything we need. We do. Because I can see him getting triggered. So I'm like, hello, let's just end this. Because I'm going to protect him too. Because I know that is a trigger. And why would I do that intentionally? And sometimes I think that we get so wrapped around, now I'm going to the PTSD side. Sometimes we get so wrapped around that, you know what, I'm just going to live my life and they need to get over their triggers. You don't just get over your triggers. It doesn't happen. You don't just get over your triggers. And for people, and I'm taking the combat side out, for people that have been sexually assaulted. If you were sexually assaulted and you were in a dark alley and you were there, you're not going to intentionally walk through a dark alley because you're going to be super heightened, super aware, because it's going to be a trigger. Okay? It's going to happen. It is going to happen. Okay? So why would you intentionally go through that dark alley? I mean, that makes zero sense. If you know that's going to set somebody off, why would you walk them through that? Same thing for me. When I have certain triggers based on EMS, I intentionally avoid those situations if I can help it. It doesn't mean I can always do it. I've said this before. There was early on, there was a wreck right down the road from where I lived, and the gentleman died, and I can remember the rain hitting his wedding ring. I don't have to go that way to go somewhere. I can go around. And when it is raining and I leave, I don't go down that road. Because why am I going to put myself in a place that's going to set me back to remember something I don't want to remember? So I avoid that if I can help it. I avoid that if I can help it. And yes, you have to learn to work through triggers. It's a slow process. But if we just protect them, we're hindering success. Exactly. But we have to talk through it. What we do when we go to succeed, we have to learn to respect triggers, true triggers. We have to learn to respect them. They have to learn to respect ours. And we have to work together to try not to trigger each other. But we cannot use the PTSD as an excuse, because then we get in this mindset, well, we can't do this because it's going to set them up. When you use protecting them from triggers, and I use that word, when you use protecting them from triggers, having a confrontation and saying to them, hey, I need you to do this. Help me with the house. Help me do this. Help me do that. When you say that, I need you to, and we walk around it, because God forbid we would walk in and interrupt something, right? Because we might trigger them. That's not triggering them. If I go in and I slam something down in front of him and I start screaming at him, that triggers him. But to walk in and say, hello, I need your help, that's not a trigger. That's an expectation of a relationship. It's the way you approach it that becomes the problem. Okay? So understand that asking them, but what we do is, because we don't understand what sets off their triggers, we don't understand what sets them off, we've sat here for so long and we've let the triggers take control that now when you walk in with a normal voice and you say something, they don't do it because we've never expected them to do it before. And then we don't understand why they don't. And then we don't understand why we are where we are today. That's why we're where we are today. So yes, you have to set boundaries. Yes, you have to set goals. Yes, you have to communicate, but you have to be respectful of the way in which you do it. You have to understand where they come from. Why in the name of God's earth am I going to go into Carl? Y'all, if I went in there right now where he is not focused on what I'm doing and he's not paying attention to me, he is in his home where he feels safe and he feels comfortable. If I went in and in our living room behind us, because it was an addition, there's like glass windows from one room to the other. If I went in there right now in the other room and I beat on the window and I chambered around in a gun, that man's going to come unglued. Okay. And if that's what I did, if I wanted to beat on the window to say, hey, I need you to take the trash out. And I went in there and beat on that window to him and did that, he's going to come unglued because the slamming, the beating, the whatever is going to trigger him. But if I walk in there and say, baby, can you stop playing your game for a minute? Or can you not watch TV for a minute? This trash really needs to go out. Can you handle that? Guess what? We're going to get the trash out. But what we find is that we don't ask them to take the trash out because we approach them in the wrong way and they don't do it. And we've let them do it for so long that now when we do approach them in the right way, they don't do it. And then we get pissed off because it didn't work. I mean, it takes time to overcome that. That is a learned behavior. We've allowed that to happen, all of us. I'm not saying that we as the spouses, the relationship has allowed that to happen. You know, it's like your kid. Okay. And I go back to this, and this is probably, if I had to say, this is one of the best parenting nightmares ever that is so funny now. Every time we came out of the store, I let my kids ride the little rides. Okay. You know, the ones you stick the quarter in or the dime. And at the time I knew it was a dime, but they could ride the little horse. Right. And I had David and he was little, and I was pregnant with Seth, and I was really pregnant and really tired, and I wanted to go home. Well, every single time we went to the grocery store, when we came out of this particular grocery store, I let David ride the horse. He did it forever. Well, this particular day, I didn't want him to ride the horse. And I'm like, David Scott, come on, we're not getting on the horse. And he jumped on the horse, goes, horsey, horsey. I'm like, no, we're not riding the horse. Let's go. And he was like, horsey, horsey. And I was tired, pregnant, bag of groceries, and it was raining. Okay, so imagine where my mindset was. And I went over and I grabbed him off of that horse and I said, we are not riding that horse today. And he is kicking and screaming across the parking lot, I hate you, you're not my mommy. I'm doing things that a parent probably would go to jail for now in public, okay? But I'm telling you, I straightened him out quick like and in a hurry. But when I got him in the car, I realized, what did I expect as a different outcome? Because I had let him ride that horse every single time. So it was a learned behavior. It was a learned behavior. It was something he expected every single time because I had always let him do it. So it was a learned behavior. And then I wonder why he was a brat. Well, he was a brat because I let him do it every time. And this time I said no. And I wanted something different. So when we walk down this path of learned behavior from both parties, and then all of a sudden we expect, you know what? We're going to take control of our life. We're going to get this PTSD situation under control. We're going to make things work. We're going to have a better thing. And you try something one time and it doesn't work and you don't get the outcome you think you're going to get. You're like, I'm done. You're like, I'm done. And so you're like, I'm leaving. It'll never change. It is a learned behavior. We have to unlearn those behaviors from both parties, not just us. Not just them. We have to unlearn that. Okay. We have to unlearn that. She said, I was telling my best friend that I needed to get in a better mindset after an argument because I know it'll get a bad reaction. It is. Your actions totally change things. You'll be amazed. I mean, and it was funny, not funny, because I say that word probably in the wrong sense, but Carl and I are on the same page about 99% of the time, and we butt heads, argue more because we are on the same page. We're just communicating it wrong to each other, right? So it's a typical little answer, and we're like this, as Carl puts it, and we are. And I was like, I'm just so distanced from him, and where's this, and where's that, and why isn't he reaching out to me? Where's the spontaneity? And all of a sudden, I got done last night with the Project Your Voice thing, and I was like, Stacy, it's you. You're so wrapped up in what you're doing that you're not giving to him what you want to receive back. You're not giving to him what you want to receive back. You want him to snuggle up on the couch with you? You're not doing that to him. And all of a sudden, it was like this light bulb had to go off in my head to say, you're an idiot here. You want this behavior. Can you give it to him first? And we forget to do that. So that's what I'm talking about. Should I stay or should I go? Yeah, stay. Make it work. But understand the why. Understand that this is a give and take. Understand to work within those limitations. Understand that it takes time. Understand that we, not just them, we collectively, them and us, allow PTSD, TBI, and triggers to control our lives because not having confrontation is easier. And now it has become a learned behavior that we have to stop. It's just something that happens. There's my other half who is just amazing.
Yeah, you stop lying.
He knows I love him. So that's where I'm talking about. You have to get this picture.
I'm reading the comments.
He's reading the comments. You have to understand that this is what goes. And you also have to understand, and I'm going to tell you this right now before we get off of here, you absolutely have to understand that doing these things is not going to develop a perfect relationship. If you think for 1 minute that learning to communicate is going to stop the arguing, you are in the wrong thing. And I don't care if you're with a veteran, if you're in a relationship with a dog, your friend, your neighbor. If you think for 1 minute that you're never going to have a confrontation with somebody, you're living in a dream world that is not real anywhere. So you need to change your expectations because yes, we argue. Yes, we fight. Yes, we disagree because that happens. But I argue with the puppy to get him to stay on his bed. I argue with the puppy to make him sit before he eats. Okay, so he doesn't just, oh, here's this cute little puppy who just does this. It is a behavior that we learn. I learned that I have to be consistent in how I talk to the dog. The dog learns that I am consistent in what I mean. And I'm not saying that men are dogs, that's what I'm saying. But it is in everything we do, we have to learn and be consistent. You can't go in and say, I am going to have this mindset today, and then because the going gets tough, not do it. Can't do it. It doesn't work that way. It takes practice. It takes time. And you're going to have failures, and you need to accept that because we can't always do things. And Nakia is right. Learning to productive communication will change the relationship outcome in the long run. And that is true. Stop avoiding the issues, but learn to work within the limitations. I know we've ran over today. Sorry, I'm in a powerful topic mode today. I'm also really excited to say that tomorrow, July 1st, is the beginning of our 1-year anniversary month. Loving My Veteran was formed in July of 2020 in the midst of a pandemic and everything else that went on. And we have grown to a level I cannot begin to explain, and the growth is just going to get better. So we are 1 day away from starting our new future going into year 2. And there'll be lots and lots of that coming up. Also today, don't forget, we do coffee, conversation, and collaboration with our friends at Behind the Service Podcast. Pop on for them. That is at 10. 6:30 tonight, Stephanie does Wellness Wednesday. And tomorrow night at 7 p.m. Eastern time, we should all get a cupcake and eat together. Girl, I'm sorry. This was founded over drumsticks, those little ice cream drumsticks. So me, Jeremy, and Carl are eating drumsticks. That's how it was founded. So you can have your cake and your ice cream when it comes to our birthday celebration. We're going to have Let's Talk, our Zoom meeting. So I just want to tell everybody that y'all have a blessed day when we get done with this. If you like this video, please give it the thumbs up. Comment on it after the video post on the stream, because these comments don't post on the regular comments. So post that after the stream. I'm Stacy. This has been Walking in My Shoes. We are loving my veteran, and y'all have a blessed day.